Hi, everyone. My name is Mansa Shroff. I'm a recent graduate from the Judge Business School.
And my name is Nath Samaratunga, and I am a current MBA student at the Judge Business School.
It's so good to see you, Nath. I hope everything's going well. I know you just started your MBA.
I know it's really exciting. I'm so glad that the admissions team put us together, let us connect, because I gained so much value from just hearing from your experience.
Yeah, I have to tell you, you were exceptionally persistent, and I'm really glad that you reached out. And I'm also really glad that you've chosen the right school. So tell us a little bit more about how did you come across the MBA? What has your career path been so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the States. Grew up there and then went to Tufts University in Boston for undergrad, where I majored in cognitive science, so very STEM heavy undergrad degree. And after undergrad, I actually started to understand just the different factors that impact people's health, such as social determinants of health. And that ultimately led me to an early career in health policy. So I worked in health policy at the local and the federal level, primarily in the US Medicaid program, so our public health insurance. And through that, I just got to talk to a lot of different patients, ultimately got really inspired by that and began medical school, working in a primarily clinical setting, um, trying to treat people's diseases in the
Mhm.
hospital. But I realized that there's a lot more in terms of the impact that I want to make. So I actually took a year off from medical school to pursue this MBA. And that's why I'm here to fill the gaps. But how about
That's
you? I'm always so intrigued to see what brings STEM people into MBAs.
Yeah. No, such an exceptional background. A doctor who loves policy is now taking time to study the MBA. I'm sure you're an asset in your class. But I think I've had a pretty nonlinear career path as well. I'm a microbiologist by training. Long story short, I thought I was going to do PhD, but then ended up spending more time on the business side of things. So I worked at USDA, at Wisconsin's Technology Transfer Office, where I picked up a little bit of entrepreneurship and the startup world, which got me really, really excited towards life sciences startups. In 2018, I came across an opportunity at Harvard's Global Health Institute. And as a complete healthcare nerd, I could not say no to Boston. So I packed my bags and moved there, supported some of the research projects at Harvard within global health, access to medicine, and digital health, which I wrapped up before starting my MBA. I was doing business development for a startup from MIT, and I really enjoyed it because I think there's so much opportunity to bridge the two, science and business, and there's a way to kind of marry them. And I think business and strategy is the best way to do it. But somewhere I felt like I was hitting my career ceiling and I couldn't grow up in the C-suite ladder. And so I started to think about the MBA, and it felt like a really good fit because it would give me a good flavor of the healthcare component and the business component and kind of bring it all together. So I'm really curious about one thing that you mentioned. Given your background in very, very hardcore science, and then now you're interested in policy, why an MBA? And what's your aspiration after it? What do you want to do with it?
Yeah, no, it's a good question that I get a lot. I think I realized through my work in policy, policy is another form of business. It asks questions like how do you use a government budget effectively in terms of financing? Can you negotiate and get your policies passed, especially in the increasingly polarized platform that we live in? And can you operationalize policy to actually turn these written policies into actionable steps that can help people? So my goal is to treat patients, of course, but also to translate their experiences into effective policy change. Um, and I think about how being in the MBA program has been such an asset because I get to interact with people who don't actually share this perspective.
Yeah.
And it's really forcing me to get out of my regular schema of like, this is how a doctor thinks, and really broaden my mindset in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But um, as someone who's new to the MBA, I'm curious to hear from you as a grad. Um, how how do you think MBA skills complement your STEM skills?
Yeah, such an interesting question because when I was thinking about the MBA, I thought the same thing. As a STEM student who studied microbiology, for both of us, right, we're a very small subset of STEM. We're just biologists. There's so many overlapping things, and yet they're so individualistic in their own ways with the STEM and the MBA. And I think that the core of the two is there's a good balance between the soft and the hard skills, right? So, for example, you come to the MBA, you do your hard skills of understanding accounting, corporate finance, you learn market sizing, you learn fundraising, you understand, how do you build a runway of, finance for your clinical trials, or you understand what post-merger governance would look like. How would you form, an equitable board, when you're starting your own company, or any specific leadership traits that you want to work on. But I think what I have really valued from the MBA is the soft skills, the nuance of actually understanding multicultural impact when you're negotiating with someone across the table who's from a different culture, understanding the crux of teamwork, because I think in STEM, we're very much individual contributors in a research lab performing our experiments. Obviously, we work very close with PIs, we work with other researchers, but it's potentially very independent. You're defending your own thesis. Compared to the MBA, where you're forced in a way to work with different people. And, as you rightly pointed out, someone coming from MD with background in policy, you will be exposed to people who are much different than you, right? And who think very differently and will perhaps also solve problems differently. And I think that's the learning component that the MBA perfectly complements a STEM background. So, for me, the MBA was a very natural fit because I was looking for that balance between the soft and hard skills, because I want to grow towards business development in pharma. And to be in a specific role like that, which is very niche, you need to require, you need to have a deep understanding of the technology piece, which is the STEM part. And then you need to have the people management skill, which is the business development part. So it really marries both my passion and my interests well. So the MBA definitely felt like a good fit. But since you just joined, I'm actually very curious. I'm sure you'd applied to a lot of different colleges. Why the Judge MBA out of everything that might have come across to you?
Honestly, I was going to ask you the same question, especially as someone who you go first and then I'll go after you.
Yeah. Okay. So let me tell you, because I've just graduated. So, Judge has a very interesting healthcare ecosystem. It's embedded right in the Silicon Fan for Cambridge, right? And I think it makes innovation and technology transfer so easy. You might have already noticed in the few months that you've been there that there's a lot of intermingling between VCs and pharma and startups and key opinion leaders. So I think that really adds that ecosystem connectedness that I really appreciated. And lastly, for me, I think the healthcare specialization that Judge offers was definitely something that made me consider Judge over all the other colleges, because I wanted to specialize in healthcare, wanted to take up projects in healthcare, even maybe working for pharma companies that are so close to us, like AstraZeneca, right? So it's the proximity and the specialization that was my winner for Judge. What about you?
Yeah, very similar. It's actually nice to hear that we have a lot of similar reasons for choosing Dutch. I think also, yeah, the healthcare specialty in this program is incredible.
Yeah.
Like when I was in medical school, I was reading research papers by Stefan Schultz, and now I'm in a business analytics class taught by Stefan
Yeah.
Schultz. So it's the best of the best who are teaching at this program, and it's surreal to be able to have access to them on a
Yeah.
regular basis. On top of that, I also feel like we're getting both an MBA experience and a Cambridge experience. And I feel like
100%.
that is priceless for me because I'm able to learn and grow from the diverse experiences that exist in my MBA cohort, but also I'll go to a formal dinner at my college and sit next to like an anthropology major or like a gender studies major and learn so many things outside of my realm of comfort that I know I'll ultimately be able to use later on in my life, whether it's interacting with a patient or like working somewhere in business. And I think that for me has been just invaluable.
Yeah, yeah. I still remember, I think my last friend from, before I moved out of Cambridge was actually a student in PhD from Wolfson, and we just happened
Mm,
to meet at the Oxbridge Club in London. And it just goes to
no way.
show that there are so many opportunities to mingle with people who may not even be from your academic background, right? They're not
Mm,
STEM, or they may not even do the MBA, but it's the university that allows you to just meet people of different backgrounds. And I think that's what enriches our entire experience, right? So I'm really glad that we got together and we were discussing this, because I see a lot of new potential applicants looking at Cambridge, specifically from a STEM background, thinking about the MBA as a career path. And I do think it's a very interesting way for a STEM student to grow professionally and personally if they come to the MBA. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like an MBA would be an asset to most STEM students, and I think STEM students would be a huge asset to any MBA program. So I will say I gained so much benefit from having you, Mansa, as a resource as I'm venturing in to this new terrain. And I think we both would love to be resources to any future student
100%.
coming from STEM, considering an MBA. We're always open to questions because we want to increase the pipeline of STEM to MBA a little bit.
Yes, yes, we definitely need more diversity. We definitely want to make sure that we, pay the way forward because there are so many other alumni who've helped us. And I'm really glad that you're there on campus in case someone wants to talk about, what the MBA feels like from a STEM perspective, because there are students doing other degrees that might also consider the MBA as their second degree within Cambridge. So, thanks so much, Nat, for connecting. And we had such a fantastic conversation about STEM in the MBA. And I hope people gain value from this.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for chatting.
Thank you.